One major definition of integrity is that you should do the right thing even if nobody is looking at you.
At what point do we as a people stand still and say, no, we no longer want money to become that thing that determines who we choose as leaders?
We are 50% of the population, and I really feel that it would make a lot of difference, a big boost to our development if there were more women participation.
Outstanding federal secretariat projects across the country get additional funding as Federal Executive Council grants approval.
As ECOWAS places embargo on flights to and from Mali, international institutions and world leaders insist mutiny in Mali is unconstitutional and unacceptable.
593 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in the country, with Plateau State leading the daily figures.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the fourth part of our series on COVID-19 and sharing experiences.
The journey begins with a doctor's diagnosis that an individual has tested positive to COVID-19. A flurry of emotions then set in, followed by questions, doubts, and even disbelief. But finally, acceptance of the facts.
Yes, Kieran, finally acceptance of the fact. But it is good to know that COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and many Nigerians have survived the ordeal and are telling their stories.
Some say they did not notice any symptom, a situation health experts call asymptomatic. But from all we are able to gather, COVID-19 symptoms include severe fever and with symptoms that sometimes appear as malaria, cough and difficulty in breathing, loss of appetite, among others.
Good Morning Nigeria has hosted several of the survivors of COVID-19, from governors to chief executives of businesses, as well as a cross-section of other Nigerians who shared their experiences.
Now, their stories provide vivid pictures of the disease and have hopefully helped many Nigerians understand more about the virus and why they should not succumb to fear, social stigma, or hide their travel history.
And today we have more survivors joining us to share their experiences on the coronavirus pandemic. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Juma Yusuf. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Kieran Umayo, joining Jumei to welcome you to the show today. And we are reaching you live as usual on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority from our studios here in Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. And we shall bring you the morning news and also bring you complimentary segments in the course of today's program. But let's first of all join Chimobi Watanaji, who has the morning news to serve you. Good morning, Chimobi.
Good morning, Kieran and Jume. It's good to see you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has approved 3.975 billion naira for the completion of outstanding federal secretariat projects in parts of the country. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The problem arose from the creation of states, new states. So in asset sharing, some of the old states took the old secretariat, and so our staff in those states across all federal ministries are either in rented official premises for their work or squatting in state government's premises. Council approved this variation, and the intention is to enable us complete the project.
And on Mali crisis, the country's military says the newly created National Committee for the Salvation of the People is to oversee a political transition towards general election. International institutions and world leaders, however, insist that the mutiny in Mali is unconstitutional and unacceptable. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is demanding unconditional release of Mali's leaders and restoration of constitutional order. Similarly, the African Union Commission condemned emphatically the arrest of President Keïta and his Prime Minister. French President Emmanuel Macron urged the soldiers to return to barracks, while the United States says extra-constitutional change of government is unacceptable.
Leaders become unpopular. I think the followers too should be patient enough, since their constitution says there's a tenure, and this tenure has not expired. Why should they now go against their own constitution?
To further compound our own problems in West Africa, especially the Boko Haram activities.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari will tomorrow participate in a virtual extraordinary session of the Authority of ECOWAS heads of state and governments. The recent political crisis in Mali is expected to be at the top of the agenda. And the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has underscored the commitment of the First Lady, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, towards addressing the scourge of malnutrition and many more challenges of women, children, and other vulnerable Nigerians. Now, this came to light at the one-day virtual National Nutrition Summit in Abuja, put together by the Aisha Buhari Foundation in collaboration with relevant stakeholders. And now turning our attention to the National Assembly, where the Senate Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning has invited the Minister of Interior to appear before it on Thursday to explain the contractual agreement between the ministry and its technical partner, Continental Transfer Technique Limited, which allocated to itself 55% revenue generated from expatriate resident permit fee paid by non-Nigerians to the Nigerian Immigration Service. Now, this followed the revaluation by the Controller General of Immigration, Mohammed Babandede, at the 2021 and 2023 MTEF and Fiscal Strategy Plan public hearing in Abuja.
55%. Federal government 33%. Debt 33%. Nigerian Immigration Service Operation cost 7%. Nigeria Immigration Service 7%. Oh, immigration 7%. Ministry of Interior 5%.
There is need for us to go on a very elaborate investigation into all of this.
We'll now turn our attention to COVID-19 responses, as the NCDC has confirmed 593 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. The new cases recorded from 16 states indicates that Plateau has the highest number of new infections with 62, followed by Oyo with 27. Next is FCT with 27 cases. Others are Delta 25, Rivers with 20 cases, Ondo 19 cases, Edo with 18 new cases, while Kaduna has 17 cases. Enugu has 12 cases, Akwa Ibom 10, Ogun with 7, while Abia and Gombe have 6 new cases each. Kano and Osun have 3 cases. Nigeria now has 50,488 confirmed cases, out of which 37,304 have been successfully treated and discharged, while 985 unfortunately died of the virus. Now, some portions of the Marian market in the heart of the city of Calabar has been razed. Property worth thousands of naira has been lost to the inferno, which lasted for several hours into the wee hours of today. Eyewitnesses say if the Cross River State government's firefighters are proactive, it would have forestalled the disaster.
Every night, we off the light from shop. If you know off the light from shop, when I come, I will try to put the key. When I put the key, they come the talk that I'm not supposed to put the key. But now it's happening.
The government of this state should try and see how they can build a beautiful market for the traders. What we are seeing here today, 3 months ago, it was the other side of Abuja. Today, it's here in Mariam Market.
The people who traced the cause of the fire to careless attitude of some traders, however, called for more caution on the part of the shop owners to ensure that electrical appliances are switched off after market hours. And that's the morning news. The program continues with Jume and Kirian after this break. Do stay with us.
She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria. Adequate mechanism to monitor public funds and infrastructural corruption was the focus of a discourse by key players in the financial sector and anti-corruption agencies. Let's get more details on business with Comfort Amadou.
The federal government has won several battles against all forms of corrupt practices in the country and is still strategizing to stem the tide. This time, it is focusing on infrastructural corruption with special attention on the financial sector to ensure efficiency and accountability, while deliberating on the Nigerian financial management system in the fight against corruption. The Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, during an online dialogue with its counterparts and the Auditor General of the Federation, explored ways of ensuring open governance across board.
Public financial management covers a broad spectrum of issues. It deals with revenue mobilization, taxation, budget preparation, resource allocation, budget execution, the situation in our country where auditors' reports will indict MDAs, and so to say, not much is being done regarding what they have done. then we have a serious problem.
They maintain that government alone cannot win the war against corruption, drawing attention to the crucial role of the civil society in this regard.
Part of the challenges that we have within the system is actually absence of public registry on beneficial ownership information. However, recently this has been addressed by the amended CAMA. Then also the absence of national PEP database. And then we also have poor cooperation among stakeholders to jointly combat corruption.
And in other financial stories, investors advanced trades on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange by 18.19 billion naira to close at 25,171.32 basis points. And here are the closing figures of the stocks. With business news, Comfort Amadou.
Thank you indeed, Comfort, for that business package. Now, the Good Morning Nigeria continues with newspaper review coming very shortly.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Chobi, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Jume. Good morning, Kyria.
Yeah, Bayo, good to see you again today. You're welcome to the beats. All right, now let's begin with the Daily Times newspaper. We've not had Daily Times in a while, this program, but it's interesting to have a Daily Times newspaper today. And the lead story here says, praises, criticisms, as Nigerians debate CAMA. CAMA is a Company and Allied Matters Act. All right, details of that can be found on page 4. Then, on corruption, that's the kicker. Why federal government arraigned Britain, 6 firms linked with P&ID deal. On loans, that's the kicker. How banks recovered 50.32 million naira loans from defaulters within 9 days. On labor, NLC berates military over alleged moves to silence critics. The story is on page 4. And that of the bank recovering of funds is on page 2. And the arraignment of the Britain and 6 others linked with a P&ID deal can be found on page 5 of the Daily Times newspaper. Jimmy.
Yes, and from the Daily Trust newspaper, we have just below the masthead, Mamman Daura in UK for medical attention. You find that story on page 4. Edo, PDP, APC trade blame as Amnesty raises alarm over violence. That story is on page 29. Mali, ECOWAS leaders meet today. Nigeria seek troops deployment. You find that story on page 6. And the bold headlines we have here is Boko Haram fighters kill soldiers, abduct 100 in Borno. With riders, farmers, fishermen pay tax to access farms and rivers. Terrorists attack Magumeri, kill nursing mother and destroy hospital. Military kills 20 terrorists in airstrikes. And why insecurity persists. And the picture story there, you know, so much disturbing picture story there. Ruined buildings at the General Hospital at Magumeri in Borno State, which was attacked by ISWAP fighters on Monday. And at the bottom plate of the Daily Trust newspaper, WAEC, 7 students test positive for COVID-19 in Gombe. You find that story on page 7. Obasanjo, I wish to live beyond 100 years. That story is on page 9. Bio. 100 years. It's quite a long time.
It's a century. Well, I wish you good luck and long life and good health. Yes. But let's start. Today is 20th August 2020. It's equivalent to the first Muharram, 1442. Today marks the new year for the Islamic lunar calendar. The difference between the two is that For the Gregorian calendar, we have 365 days, and sometimes in the leap year, 366. Yes. But with the lunar calendar, like it's provided for in the Quran, it said the number of months with Allah are 12. And so it's 12 months, and it's 29, it's either 29 days or 30 days. So if you compare, you find that there's always a shortfall of 11 days in the year. And historically, the Gregorian calendar that has 12 calendar months used to have 10 months until July was named after Julius Caesar and August after August Caesar. And now you know how there are 12 calendar months. But Chinese too have their own New Year Day.
Yes, they do.
It's all come. But update with COVID-19, there's the story you read about students who are sitting white who have tested positive. In fact, there have been instances in 2 states. On the first day they were sitting white, a student in Gombe had tested positive on Sunday. So on Monday, he had to write his mathematics exam in isolation. And the Nigerian Center for Disease Control praised the initiative of the Gombe people for at least providing the room for the student to write his examination. But since then, Gombe State Committee for the COVID-19 have tested about 1,180. And out of it, they also, yesterday, Wednesday, discovered 7 other female students who have tested positive. But they are going to make arrangements for them to be able to continue to take the exam. They say that COVID-19 will not be an obstacle for them taking the exam. In Kwara State, a female student also has tested positive, and I think they will make arrangements for her to be able to write her exams. Meanwhile, the Olabisi Onabanjo University Teaching Hospital in Shagamu has also confirmed that 8 of their laboratory assistants have tested positive to COVID-19. The chief medical director was denying information that about 20 of them have so tested. And he said something which is very, very emphatic. He said, medical personnel are certainly human and they are also immune. The only thing they wear in giving care is personal protective equipment. He says soldiers, they are just like soldiers. Soldiers cannot, because of fear of death, go to war. And they said that medical personnel are heroes, and we need to praise their initiative for putting their lives online to provide care.
I think what I want to point out, perhaps you could also talk about it, is the issue of the students, who tested positive to COVID-19. Where did they get it from? Is it from home, or while they're already in the school taking the examination, especially for schools that run boarding system? I don't know. I'm just thinking that if the students got it while in school, then they have to ramp up testing. So
contact tracing.
The Commissioner for Education from Gombe State, Habu Damian Dahiru, actually said that they deliberately tested students that were coming from Kaduna, Kano, Yobe and Lagos to come and resume. Those are a kind of COVID-19 endemic states. And that is why they took the pains to test at least 1,000 and about 110 students. And it was through this screening that they identified these ones.
I think their efforts should be commended.
Yes,
if not, I cannot just begin to imagine, how it's going to be.
The authority of the heads of states and government of ECOWAS will be having a virtual conference today. In fact, it's a virtual summit to tackle the issues, the development in Mali. You recall that as at Wednesday, the military junta that forced the President Ibrahim Keita to resign and also put him under arrest, as well as the Prime Minister Bosun Sisi, has announced that they are going to have a short transition period. But the ECOWAS summit has advised that they should revert to the civil administration. The AU has said the same thing by immediately stopping the membership of Mali of the regional body. The EU and the United Nations have all also spoken critically against that upstorm in the political dispensation in Mali. The summit of the heads of states and ECOWAS community will be deliberating on that today.
Well, we'll wait and see what they're going to come up with, because already they have made a statement, that is not in favor of the coup plotters. And you also know that former President Jonathan has been doing a diplomatic shuttle to and from Mali for a while now in trying to solve the problem. Likewise, other heads of nations, in the West African sub-region. But the thing is that there was this persistence of instability in the state after the election. Right, he had lasted for a while, even all the while that I think the president of Nigeria visited Mali once, in the course of trying to solve the problem. But now one wonders what happened that led to the coup plotters to now take over the government. A state that has been there unstable after election, no administration, no governance, everything on a standstill. What were people expecting? I'm not trying to endorse coup, because of course no matter how bad civilian administration is, coup is not the answer to that. But I was not thinking that the Malians themselves, especially those in governance, ought to have taken positive steps after the election to see how they can normalize the situation before the advent of these soldiers from the barracks. In any case, we're going to see how that plays out, because coup cannot be acceptable anymore globally.
Yes, insurgency from Tuaregs has been deviled Mali as far back as 2012. Yes. In fact, the president that has been ousted now came in soon after they overcame the insurgency and the coup in 2012. So this is the second coup coming within that space between 2012 and now. And so the challenge has always been there. Political disagreements. There was election and there was disagreement. That was why former President Goodluck Jonathan, who is an envoy to Mali, came and briefed the president. And the AU, the ECOWAS summit in the Wisdom, summoned an immediate summit which they briefly went for in Mali. And they made recommendations. But somehow, the recommendations did not fall through before you have these mutinous soldiers walking into the state capital and forcing the president to resign. And then taking them into custody.
Okay. But up to now, they have not really laid out any plans to return Mali to civilian administration.
No, in fact, what they have done is that they have already named a junta leader. And their junta leader is saying that they are open to civilian political transition and will work. The opposition even recognizing the junta already and saying they will work with them towards a civilian transition.
Yes,
but
I hope
let's see how that turns out.
I hope it works out well. Let's look at the editorial, and it's coming from the Punch newspaper. It's talking about COVID-19 and elites' reckless behavior.
Well, you recall that since the advent of COVID-19, there have been a few breaches of the protocol of COVID-19. Sadly, it is always coming from prominent personalities or celebrities. And the editorial is happening on the first breach of that protocol we had, if you recall, was a former governor. And that happened at Kano Airport. A serving governor also breached the same protocol at Port Harcourt. A media executive is reported to have breached the protocol at Abuja Airport. And a security officer at the airport itself was reported to have breached the same protocol at the office. It is no news to say that two artists, Akindele and Fashola, had also breached it, for which they were brought before a mobile court and they had to serve community service and also pay fine. What the editorial is happening on is that, well, when we say people are VIPs, they should set good example and should not become very unruly. And they are emphasizing the fact that by not setting good example and by undermining the protocol for COVID-19, they are not only endangering the society, they are actually enhancing the spread of COVID-19. And therefore, they are advocating that we should learn from the examples of United States, for instance, where the president was in denial and the thing escalated. Brazil, the president was in denial until he himself became a victim. Yes. In fact, it took the Supreme Court of Brazil to enforce wearing of masks. The president said there was no need to wear masks.
And it was,
so the editorial is happening on that unless we take all these protocols very, very seriously.
And take politics out of it.
Take politics out of it, or take VIPs. It says that mentality of a very important person out of it will be endangering our society.
Do you know who I am and all of that? That is a syndrome in Nigeria that should be really looked into very seriously, because COVID-19 does not know whether you are a VIP. Yes, whether you are a VIP or you're an ordinary Nigerian, if you get it, you've gotten it and have to go and take care of yourself. So please let the VIPs know now that COVID-19 is real and not a respecter of anybody, especially when you want to use public infrastructure like the airports. Right.
Yes.
All right, Bayo. That's the much we can take from today's newspaper review. Thank you as always for your analysis. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA network service, and of course we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation for this morning will be in place, and that's of course sharing experiences with those who have actually survived the COVID-19. Don't go away.
The United Nations is 75. When we come together and discuss our priorities as a human family, we can build a better future for all. Join the conversation. UN 75 online.
NTA TV College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director Marketing NTA TV College Jos on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Our conversation this morning is the fourth part of COVID-19 and sharing experiences. Victor Azu put together excerpts from last week's third part of the series.
It's becoming clear to us, at least at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, where we've undertaken some what is called seroprevalence tests, some surveillance tests using antibodies, aside from just the popular COVID-19 tests. It's clear that there is some exposure, or that quite a number of people have been exposed to the disease and are asymptomatic. So it's only when you test them and if you catch them at the right time that they will test positive. We went ahead and did what we call antibody tests, which are blood tests that let you know whether people who are asymptomatic have been exposed to the disease. And there are two types. There's the one that the antibody that occurs from prolonged exposure before, or one that occurs to an exposure that is recent. I had both, which confirmed I had previously been exposed and I was now re-exposed. But since I was asymptomatic, it shows that to some extent, there was some body reaction to it that prevented me from becoming sick.
I was on oxygen for like 2-3 days. Within that period, I could really not help myself do anything apart from go to the bathroom and back. You know, I couldn't eat. I was, and I had to take the drug. So it was constant, just force yourself to see if you can put something in your system so that the drugs can start working. I think that took about 4 or 5 days. Thereafter, I was off oxygen. I was relatively okay by the 8th, 9th day. But because I think there's a regime they have for the treatment, which takes that period of time. And you know, they come to check again to see if you're now negative. Mm-hmm. But if you still return positive, you know, they'll still ask you to stay, you know, take the drugs again for some days.
After staying for almost 2 weeks, I continued to test positive. The anxiety was enormous. That forced me to release a video in the social media because the people feel that when you have COVID-19, you are dead or you have ventilator. So the anxiety is not only on me, on my family, on my relation, on my loved ones across the country. There were a lot of prayers sessions in churches and mosques for me, and I've seen a lot of those clips. The anxiety was enormous. But internally in me, I knew I was not sick. I just have to tell you this. I was not feeling anything except loss of smell and taste. But I was strong. I was doing 6,000 steps in my small room in Gwagwalada. I had the Samsung watch, which takes my steps. My age limit says 6,000 steps. And I do that steps every day. So the anxiety was less. The anxiety was more from my loved ones than myself, but I had the feeling strongly that I will recover.
Health is a lifetime investment. We don't have to wait until we're sick or COVID-19 comes before we start looking after our health. This is what we call the annual wellness check. Most people, or all of us, should have our personal doctors that we check, especially as we advance in age. It's very important. Like any other disease, COVID-19, if you catch it early, at the early stage of the disease, that's why you have early, mild, and severe. It has been classified. You will walk over it. Then lifestyle is really very important. Make sure you eat very well. Diet. Nutrition is a key factor that drives our immune system.
All right, and joining us in the studio is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama. So you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
And also in the studio here in Abuja is Dr. Josephine Okechukwu. She is the Director, FCT Department of Public Health and the Human Services Secretariat. It's also nice to have you join us, madam, on the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good morning.
And still here in Abuja, we have Ohiz Izere. Ohiz Izere is a foreign education consultant, a public affairs analyst, and a COVID-19 survivor. It's a pleasure also to have you here this morning on our show.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
And also joining us via Zoom from Lagos is the Chief Press Secretary to the Lagos State Governor, Boyega Akwesili. It's a pleasure having you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be part of the program.
Kieran?
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we welcome you to this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria, where we're about to share experiences. And it's necessary that we start with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, whose COVID-19 infection actually was broadcast to Nigerians. And of course, we all felt that for him to have caught it then, there is something about this COVID-19 that we are yet to know, because he has taken all the precautionary measures as a member of the PTF. So, sir, let us share your experience on how, especially the first time you were told that you had COVID-19.
Yes, as I said at the time, I had this tickle in the throat, and I thought it was on a Friday, a working day, and I thought I had maybe a sore throat or something coming, or a cold. So I got some throat lozenges, which I started to take. But that evening, I had some, symptoms. When I got home in the evening, I felt a shiver, inside your bone that you get like when you have malaria or something. So I took a hot shower, and then I had this thing on the heart. It seemed like I could shake it off, but it didn't quite, come off. And then also I had sort of slight ache on the legs, So I said, okay, I'll see how I feel the following day. And the following day, all those symptoms went, except for a slight congestion, which was getting more and more. So I asked for a test, because those were all symptoms that I know are consistent with possible COVID. And I half suspected that I might have caught it, actually. So we did the test, and that night, I went to bed fairly early, and when I woke up in the morning, I looked at my phone, my message, and the person who had, I saw that one of the people who had tested me had said, please call. Please call me.
What went through your mind then?
Well, no, since I was half suspecting it could be, when I saw please call, because I'd taken 3 tests before, and each time, then the following day, I get a text message to say negative. So on this occasion, I knew I was positive, because that was a different way of communicating the information to me. And so I called. I didn't get the person very early in the morning. And then later on, I said, yes, I'm positive, aren't I? And, he said yes. And so we're arranging now to move you to an isolation center. She was also one of the first people that I then saw. I was thinking of isolating at home, but the director advised that I should go into an isolation center. I was quite happy with that. But I felt all the symptoms had gone, as I said, apart from the throat something. Yeah, so I was absolutely normal, physically,
Now, prior to that, would you be able to remember where you went to and the possible contact to the COVID-19 patient that could have led to you contacting it?
Yeah, this was something I was really struggling to try to, think of. Because it was a Friday that I felt the first throat thing. The weekend before, as you know, the ministers, we all descended on Owerri, where the new governor was hosting us. It was a very small plane that we were on. Some people said it could be that. That was 5 days or so before, 5-6 days before that first symptom. And the only other thing I could think of was that I think there were on 2 occasions, which was very silly of me. I received some people, and we took some photographs afterwards, but they were very keen that my face should show, So I very quickly took off my, protective gear for the picture. And if I could recall correctly, this happened on 2 occasions. And I just thought to myself, that's the only time I literally and figuratively let my guard down. But it was just for a few seconds. Yeah.
So was there any contact tracing of people you came across before you were diagnosed positive?
Before I was diagnosed positive...
No, I mean, was there contact tracing of the people you met before your test came out positive?
Yes, of course. I mean, once, when it became positive, there was contact tracing. I mean, all my immediate, the people in the house with me, the people in the office, in my office and the larger office, my close aides, and so forth. And then I gave a list of names of people I had met that week. So, so there should have been.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Minister. Let's look at your own story. What happened? How did you find out that you were sick and you went for the test? What happened in between?
All right, thank you. The symptoms I experienced were not so different from what the Honorable Minister mentioned. I think this was in early June. I noticed I was having, normal symptoms of malaria. I suspected to be malaria. Body pains, bitterness in the tongue, loss of appetite. So I just treated for malaria, got over-the-counter anti-malaria drugs. And a few days later, I realized I didn't get better, so I suspected that probably maybe I've also had salmonella infection, that's typhoid, because I had consumed roasted corn and pears, from the roadside, and these are ways you can actually contact salmonella infection. So I went, got some antibiotics, administered, but I wasn't getting better. So at this point, I had to walk into the hospital, see my doctor, carried out some diagnosis. I was really having terrible pains around my joints. It was that bad. Nagging headache, then some kind of nagging cough. It wasn't that excruciating, but it was just there. Some tickling feeling in my throat. I didn't suspect to have COVID. I just felt this could be typhoid or probably malaria plus. But the test result came out and I had just +1 malaria. And I told myself, +1 malaria cannot make me feel this terrible. So my doctor decided to extend the malaria treatments. We even had to use artesunate IV for 24 hours, but I was not getting better, I was deteriorating. At this point, he looked at me, examined me properly, and suspected that this could be COVID-19. You know, that thing where you try to steer your fate, and, it's not me factor. But I said, okay, no problems. If it's COVID-19, I don't think it's not a death sentence. Let's diagnose. And that is where the problem began, because I called the NCDC number, Somebody picked up, referred me to another number. A lady picked up and said she was going to get back to me. She never did till tomorrow.
So what was going through your mind as you were waiting for them to pick up the call and get back to you?
A whole lot. You really cannot figure out what exactly was, I was in a dilemma because I wasn't sure what it was. What I was suspecting, we have treated and not getting better. So I was just at a crossroad, waiting for an answer. But while I tried to reach out to NCDC to come and, either book me in for a test or come and collect my sample and all that proved abortive. My personal doctor, had to call some of his friends who were at the front line of the COVID-19 fight. And I think those personnel came from the FCT Public Health Department. They collected my test, my sample, and I'm not going to say this publicly, I might say it offline, requested for some other things again, but I let that pass because I was more interested in my health at this time. They told me that my result will come out 72 hours from when they collected my sample. But I tell you, for 8 days, I did not hear from NCDC or the FCT Public Health.
And you were home?
I was discharged from the hospital because I was on bed rest for a day in the hospital. I went home. Thank God I had, a relatively spacious apartment. I self-isolated, did some research, and self-medicated.
Self-medicated?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we might come to that, but I think the point you've made here that the public will be interested in is the fact that you placed a call across to the NCDC and you didn't get any response.
There was no response.
Right, and these are some of the issues that people have been raising over time since the advent of COVID-19. Poor response by NCDC officials. But in any case, they are not here today, to respond to that. But I just want to point it out because it's very important. Because you said you have an apartment that's, that has spacious. Otherwise, and you had a sense of isolating yourself in the house. Otherwise, you could have also passed it on, to members of your family.
It would have been devastating.
Exactly.
If I had waited for NCDC to actually convey my test report to me before action is being taken, probably maybe the case would have been more devastating than, because I was actually in a very bad shape health-wise. I was in a bad shape. On the 8th day, my younger sister who lived with me started exhibiting similar symptoms. Because I just felt, okay, maybe that was when I had to escalate the matter. At that time, I was already stable through the treatment protocol I engaged myself in. I was already stable. I had to escalate the matter, even had to call WHO. I was calling whoever I don't know. I was just calling.
If I might come in here,
yes.
Since you didn't see the result, how did you know you were positive?
The symptoms were very glaring at that point. Because if you do a study, you realize comparatively the symptoms between malaria, typhoid, pneumonia, and COVID are very similar. So what I was doing then was just, I'm sick. I have tried this, I have tried that. I'm not getting better. Let me try this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Let's come to Madam Josephine, who is here with us. Josephine is the Director, FCT Department of Public Health and Human Services Secretary. What has been the experience like? He just gave us a narrative, that clearly describes what it means for one to have symptoms and want to get tested and what have you. So, what has the experience been? Being in the front line as well. Like the nurses and doctors who are on the front line of the fight against COVID-19. What has been your experience?
Generally, it has been very overwhelming. We all know that the way COVID-19 came to the country, nobody was expecting this level of outrage of COVID-19 infection. So for us in FCT, it has been very, very overwhelming. Within a space of 5 months and a half, we rose from 3 cases that were detected in March, on the 20th of March precisely, till date, over 4,800. So the frontline workers that are working, as at now, we've even collected over 40,000, about 43,000 samples. we know that there is problem with human resources across board. In the health sector, it's been a challenge, a huge challenge. The human resources, the frontliners that came on board to assist in the response to COVID-19 have been doing that. It's unfortunate that we are having all this experience, but there is still the good parts. They've been working day and night. In my department, the responders, we collect samples across the whole time, every minute of the day. In the middle of the night, whenever patient call on us, we go there to collect samples. I am not trying to defend anybody here. NCDC, the toll-free line, initially they shared a line, about 4 lines or 5 lines, that is made available to the whole nation. So if you are calling, most of the time the lines are engaged. Not that they are not responding, right? Because at the end of the day, we now looked at it. We advised that if those lines are just for the whole Nigeria, then it will not work. So let it be state specific, right? So that there will be better response. There has been improvement on the response from NCDC side. For us in public health, we have our toll-free lines that we shared, and then people have access to it. We were doing a lot. We've been doing a lot. So some people have their own good side of the story, prompt response. There are some delayed response, and then we know that we have only one laboratory, reference laboratory in SCT, that takes care of all the samples that we generate here and that for other states, right? So in the lab, there could be some deficiencies and then delays that come from the lab, so that when they now release the results, the 72 hours response was at that initial stage. But later, there were challenges because the machine cannot just be walking around the clock without breaking down. There will be obvious breakdown of the machine. Some of the staff, too, were coming down with COVID that are sensitive in the laboratory. So these are the challenges we had. To get them replaced, you need to think about that. So there was huge sample that were collected and are being analyzed in the Gadua reference lab. So for the 48 hours or 72 hours response, at times it doesn't really hold.
Yeah. But how are you dealing with the delay in question at the moment? Because in some cases, some sort of 2 weeks before they get resolved. What about how will you improve on that?
What we are doing now is to decentralize testing. Like we have another private lab that is coming on board now to start testing. The e-health clinic in Gwarimpa, the teaching hospital in Gwagwalada is testing now. So just to create other avenues for testing to take place. But we do the sample collection. But the main PCR lab is, that is the molecular lab, is in Gadua. The minister is looking into this. We want to start another testing site in FCT, which will take off very soon, just to decongest the workload in Gadua reference lab.
Okay, Dr. Josephine, we'll get back to you in the course of the program to tell us more about efforts being done in FCT to, curb the COVID-19 spread. Let's now go to Lagos, where the Chief Press Secretary to the Lagos State Governor, Boyega Akosile, is waiting. Can you hear me? Yes, I would like, you've had, our guests talking about the experiences and Dr. Josephine talking about how FCT is managing the spread of COVID-19 and community spread of the disease here in Abuja. In Lagos, we've had a very high, number of COVID-19 in Lagos. And can you tell us the experience you've had and how patients have been, sort of reacting to the positive test and how recovery is there in Lagos? Let's hear what you have.
Okay, thank you very much. At the level of the states, Lagos State currently has about 16,536 active cases right now. And of course, Lagos is the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. And thankfully, we have a very energetic, very hardworking, and very focused, proactive governor who saw it, well, I dare say, ahead of everybody, as advised since November, December last year. The activities were actually triggered. I must say that emphatically. The activities towards managing COVID-19, were triggered as far back as December last year. So we started building a lot of resources, building up resources, and of course now, as of today, we built so much in terms of redundancy in the state, and that's why the management of it has been quite great in the state of Lagos. And courtesy again, the fantastic team put together by Mr. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as headed by the Commissioner of Health, Professor Ake Abayomi, who on a daily basis meet and they give, they offer advice, they review, and of course, they postulate, they look at projections, they look at several things. I've been privy to be part of their meetings, and I know what they do. It's been very, very impressive. That's on the side of the state, and that's why the state has been able to kind of reduce what would have been a very alarming or very overwhelming number. Now, on a personal level, I experienced it. I mean, we started, all of us have been on the front line, being a journalist and, spokesperson for the governor. I go everywhere, and I've been everywhere. So it wouldn't be out of place, no matter how highly protective of yourself you may be. I had prepared my mind that it wouldn't be out of place if, for some erroneous reasons, I come in contact with it. So I prepared my family too. I let them realize that, look, this thing may happen, and if it happens, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't take people's lives, and it's not COVID that takes lives, really. It's the underlining. And I think I made an allusion to that in the long winding write-up that I did after my experience. I experienced it, I think, on the 1st of July. And by end of July, early August, I was out of it. And it was a very, it wasn't a nice experience, I must say. I mean, I don't want to start, putting it mildly. But I also need to point out very quickly that the reaction varies from one person to another. I listened to what the Honorable Minister said just now. Apart from the feeling in his throat, it was perfectly all right. And, that's the reaction from him. But look at the other gentleman. He was in a very bad shape when his own happened. Myself, I had never, in fact, I think I would liken my feelings, to the other gentleman, there. I'm talking about Ohis. So it started like a fever, but some sort of very funny.
Well, we have lost our connection with the commissioner. He's back. He's back. Okay. Let's return to him, please. Well, the disconnection has indeed persisted, so we are back here in the studio. But also, we have to go to Oyo State, where we have, we go to Ibadan actually, where we have Dr. Wasiu Olatunbosu, the Oyo Commissioner for Information. Well, if you can hear me, let's hear from you. Oyo State is one of the states in the southwest of Nigeria that has its fair share of COVID-19 infections. May we just know what the government has been doing to curb the spread of this virus, and what is the behavioral pattern of people from that state with respect to adhering to the protocol guiding COVID-19.
Good morning, Nigerians, and I want to use this opportunity to thank the management of Nigerian Television Authority and thank Almighty God, Almighty Allah, for giving us this opportunity. Because about a week ago, I never thought that I would be able to celebrate today's Hijrah with Muslim Ummah all over the world. So I'm using this opportunity to congratulate Muslim Ummah all over the world. Happy Hijrah Day. So, and concerning Oyo State, let me start with Oyo State, the situation in Oyo State, before I tested positive, I happened to be one of the task force member, COVID-19 task force member in Oyo State, and being the commissioner for information, I toured over 600 communities and villages, including border villages, and during that period, I tried to prepare my mind for any eventuality because it's part of hazard of the job. So, but thank God that we have the leader of the team, Governor Makinde, who happens to be very focused, and we use 3 cardinal ways of driving this COVID-19. 1, meritocracy. He puts the caliber of those people that form the COVID-19 are men of impeccable character in their different disciplines, most especially the technical aspect of it. We have the former CMD, Professor Dimitri Alonge. We have current CMD. So we have Honorable Commissioner for Health and all his permanent secretaries and the technical, they form the technical team, and yes, say Health to the His Excellency. So he puts all these people together based on merit, not other consideration. And also, we are very pragmatic. What do we mean by pragmatism? Is that we are always guided by logic and scientific proving. So if we want to prove anything, we subject it to scientific experiment. Okay, if we want to do this, why do we have to do this? What are those things that that we expect the results that we are expecting? And that's the reason why we are always at the forefront in taking decisions, opening of schools and opening our economy and what have you. So far, you will see that we are also at the, top 3.
Dr. Wasiu, if I might come in here, can you tell us your experience? What happened when you started feeling sick and when you got your positive result? Let's have your experience like the minister told us about his.
Yes, I thought I would just first of all address that before going to my experience. It was after my tour of all the 33 local government and all the 351 wards that the governor flagged off the community testing, and I happened to be the one who represented him there. And it was there that, after that, we were all asked to go and do the COVID-19 test. And it was a day after, 24 hours later, that the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, called me that I tested positive. Initially, I was down psychologically, emotionally, and everything. And that was commencement of my isolation. So, and they gave me the opportunity whether to go to isolation center or I will be at home. They came to my home to see if the home would be conducive, which they approved, and that's how I started. My own case is different from those people that have spoken, the Honorable Minister and the other person, and even my friend, my colleague from Lagos. I couldn't observe, or I didn't have any really, all the symptoms identified, I didn't have, except initially, maybe due to psychological, emotional, I was down and I was weak and what have you. So, and after some days, I realized that I will have to face the reality that this thing happened. And then people started calling, but I know that the first 3 days was, I couldn't, it was hell for me, because the combination of psychological, emotional, and could it be true? And eventually it dawned on me that it had happened, and it had happened. So the life must go on. So, and during that period, though I started with, you will wonder why did I have to stay for 46 days in isolation. I had 7 tests in all. I tested 5 times positive before having the 2 negatives. So during that period, it was hell, because when they arrived, they took my sample. After 48 hours, they just called me and say, sorry, sir, it's still negative, positive. So it wasn't easy. So it was, when it got to a certain stage, they now ask for my protocols. What are those things that I'm doing that I should stop? Because initially I was using herbs. I combine herbs, that's unorthodox, with orthodox medicine and what have you. So I will have to steam different types of herbs in the morning and combine it with all the drugs they gave me in the medical team gave to me. So when it got to that certain stage, they said, okay, I should have to drop all the herbs. Apart from steaming the herbs, I took about 10 types of herbs. You understand? So that thing really could not really, it really affected my immunity. So they said I should drop it. And by the time I drop it, so I started taking the orthodox drugs, combine it with bitter cola and orogbo and atari. So, and when they came for the 6th one, when I tested positive, in fact, I was very happy. And the last one came 48, 72 hours later. And I also tested negative. So
yes, Dr. Wasi Olatibosi, very interesting story you have there for us. But I thought you started by telling us that as one of the frontliners, you prepared yourself for anything to happen. Then when it eventually, got to you became scared. The good thing is that you told us you applied the local medication and they did not work, and that's a good story you've told us as well. And many Nigerians will understand the fact that COVID-19 may not respond, to any help as the case may be, and that kept you for over 40 days, in isolation. Well, we thank God you're back, you're on your feet now, you're back to work, and what have you. Thank you so much indeed. We'll come back to you as the program progresses. Right now, let's return to Lagos. As a matter of fact, we learned that our guests there will be leaving us any moment from now. So let's return to the Chief Press Secretary to the Lagos State Governor, Boyega Akosile. Mr. Akosile, in the course of your first contribution, we lost your connection along the line, right? So we would like to conclude your storyline, and also let us know what is going on in Lagos, because as you rightly pointed out, is the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria, and let us know whether you are ramping up testing, because testing appears to be the #1 thing. And Lagos, of course, being a congested area where we have so many Nigerians residing, especially in some in suburbs, right? There is every fear, that many Nigerians in Lagos may have COVID-19 and may not have been tested up to this moment.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lagos is really scaling up in terms of testing, and we opened local testing centers where samples are being collected. Right now in Lagos, people don't have problems with testing. In fact, we have begun the downward slide on our graphs, and that's why we've had to shut down 2 isolation centers right now because the cases are beginning to go down, not significantly, but we're not experiencing the spike that we used to have, back then up until about 3 weeks ago. Lagos is, as everybody knows, the epicenter of this pandemic, and a lot of resources have been put into it to fight it. Don't forget that it's not just the health challenge that you fight, in the case of pandemic. You're fighting economic challenge, you're fighting security challenge, you're fighting the health challenge itself, and of course you are fighting what you do, what I do. You are fighting information challenge. And when you look at the sociology of our people, there is a mistrust between the government and the governed. It's basic. We do not have to shy away from that. People do not believe anything that is coming from government until you begin to drum it to them, and start to sound like a broken record. Or secondly, when something happens to someone close to them, that is when they now begin to look at, okay, this thing is really happening. So we're fighting it in different areas. When it's a holistic approach that Lagos State government is doing to fight this pandemic. And I must say that on a personal note, again, maybe because I've experienced it, I decided to share my experience to the public. In fact, some members of the family were like, "Oh, why did you have to put it out? Why?" And I'm like, "Why? Why not? I mean, COVID-19 is in the air. If I'm an information agent, I should use myself as a test, as a point of contact to thousands or millions of people out there." And that's why I agreed, to be on your show, because normally I don't go on television or grant newspaper interviews. I only speak for my boss. But when it comes to the issue of COVID-19, I told my principal that it's very important that he gave me an express permission that, look, you need to disseminate this information, let people know that it actually happened to you. So like the Honorable Commissioner of Information in Oyo State, I also stayed at home for 6 weeks. I did 2 testing. They were positive. And in fact, when the second one came back positive, I began to tell myself, I said, what kind of COVID-19 is my own? Am I not going to test negative? No, but unlike him, I wasn't particularly scared. I think I had sort of prepared myself. The point that I began to get scared was when my wife wasn't responding to treatment because I infected my wife. So it was when my wife, wasn't responding to treatment, and then she had to be evacuated to the isolation center. Okay, so that was when fear set in for me. But for my own, I was only uncomfortable, the discomfort, the pains, and everything. But psychologically, I wasn't scared because maybe I knew about it. I'd not experienced it. I'd never experienced it, but I haven't been on the front line with the health workers, with the risk communication unit, and going to communities, going to different local governments and all of that. I had prepared my mind that, look, this thing may... But I used to tease our team member that, look, this thing may go around, though. With the way we are moving around everywhere, this thing may go around, but just prepare your mind and protect yourself. And thankfully, many of us, tested. Some of us tested positive. Some of us knocked down. Like in my own case, I was knocked down. and some are, asymptomatic, and nothing happens to them. They tested positive, but they were isolated and they came back to work. And everybody is fine now. Everybody is fine. My family is fine. And, the work has started. I've gone back to work. So it's really an experience. The thing I need to say here is that Nigerians, and that's why I appreciate what NTA is doing, putting it as a program, as a segment to educate, millions of Nigerians out there. The COVID-19 is actually real, and that people should not take it for granted. And this thing will be with us for a long time to come, until maybe when the vaccine, has been.
Boyega Akosile, Chief Press Secretary to the Governor of Lagos State, would like to thank you so much. We'll pause you here so we can have time to talk to others. Thank you so much indeed for getting express permission from your boss to talk to us on Good Morning Nigeria about your experience. It's been a wonderful experience because you have survived it. Thank you. Back to Abuja here. Honorable Minister, you spent about 3 weeks in isolation.
That's right.
Right. So what was your experience like, And of course, when you first presented yourself to the public, courtesy of PTF, you talked about stigmatization. Right. Why were you particular about stigmatization?
Well, for two things, really. I saw that as one of the reasons why people were not getting tested. And when I decided to get tested, I was going to give myself some days, just to see how I felt. And but one of the things that I was thinking about was how guilty I would feel if other people caught it during the time I said, let me give myself, So, as much as for others, I decided to test immediately. And I know that a lot of people shy away from testing. I know that there have been some people that have told me that, I'm feeling this way and that way. And I said, get tested. And I could see that they're reluctant to, because one, they're scared, but also, what people will say. And that's why I was very keen to go out immediately, say I've had it, and and show that it's nothing to be, ashamed of. And I think also people at the initial stages, felt that if they had it, how people will react to them as if they were lepers or something like that, And so I thought it was very important, that we should also address that so that people can feel much more easy about getting tested, about having it, and that kind of thing.
Okay, let's still talking about stigmatization. Most Nigerians, see elites coming out to say, I've had COVID, I was in isolation. When are we going to begin to see real Nigerians, who come out to talk without being afraid of people, stigmatizing them and, driving them away from work or where they, from their homes and all that? Attitudinal change is necessary here, don't you think?
Absolutely. I had that experience directly because when we were doing the evacuation under the PTF, and I was directly responsible for that, we started off late because when we went round to get isolation centers and hotels, initially the hotel owners were not very keen for us to use their hotels because they said that it would tarnish their brand, as hotels, because of that stigmatization. So I think it was, but after a while, they started coming around, and as we understood the disease or the epidemic more and more. So I think that also the fact that a lot of high-profile people, have had this, have recovered. So the ordinary person should also not feel somehow, that there's something wrong with them because they can always say,
No, the Nigerian mentality is, the way we behave at times.
Prince Charles had it, Boris Johnson, the president of Brazil, and
even some of
many
our governors,
actors, governors, globally. So I think, people are now beginning to understand that it's nothing really to, I think, although generally, any contagious or infectious disease is always going to be problematic, because people understand that if you have it, you can actually infect them with it. So whatever it is, you know, you're always going to feel that this person is quote unquote danger, you know. So I think that's a natural, you know, reaction. Things like malaria, you know that it's not infectious or contagious, but things that are, it's a natural human reaction that you want to prevent yourself from it.
So, okay, when we come back to you, we'd like to also share your daily experience, you know, while they're in isolation. But now let's get back to Ohis Izere. Ohis Izere. Ohis Izere, in your opening comment, you were talking about self-medicating, which is not advisable, which should not be encouraged, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't be encouraged.
Listen to the Commissioner for Information or your state, you know, tell us, you know, what he went through trying to, you know, combine both orthodox and unorthodox, you know, medication. So, what exactly did you do, and how did you get out of it?
Yes, I didn't use, like the commissioner in Oyo State, I did not use any herbs. I used orthodox medicine with the supervision of my doctor too. So, but I was actually administering these things to myself at home because I had not, I thought I couldn't really wait for NCDC.
But did the test come out before you started the...
No, it did not come out. It was supposed to come out 72 hours from when my sample was collected.
Yes.
But that did not happen.
So what did you use as treatment?
Should I go ahead and mention?
Yes, what were you using?
What I used was chloroquine, azithromycin, augmentin, 6 to 5 milligram, zinc, vitamin C, and loratadine. These were the combination I used.
Was it all before the results came out?
It was before the result came out, and I was stable within 72 hours of administration.
Then, when the result came out, what happened?
I had to escalate. I had to escalate because I wanted to be sure of my status. Let me be sure if I'm actually dealing with the right thing or if I have to do some more examination. And on the 9th day, I became a little bit worried when my younger sister, who is staying with me, started exhibiting symptoms. So I was very, very apprehensive at that point and worried. So I had to escalate my situation, and I got a call from one Dr. Lawal, FCC Public Affairs Department, and who now mentioned my result to me, that the result is actually positive.
But does you think what you were doing was wrong, sort of, without getting a result?
Considering my circumstance at that point, I don't think it was wrong. Okay, because if I had waited without self-medicating or without taking those, it would have been more devastating. I was in a terrible state.
Now, when your result came out, it was positive.
It was positive.
How many days did it take to come?
9 days.
9 days.
That is, I am very sure if I had not escalated the case, it wouldn't have come out.
Okay, now when the result came out, right? How were you now tested negative? How do you?
I went into isolation. I explained to Dr. Lawal, who called me, that I'm quite stable right now. I explained how I was feeling, what I have done, and my current states. And then he said, okay, first of all, they have to do contact tracing. And I will actually, you know, give them a thumbs up for that. They were quite swift. Within few hours from when they reached out to me that my result was positive, a particular team called me. They came to my house and collected a sample of my household, my family members.
That was after you started treatments by yourself?
Yes. Yes.
And it still came out positive?
It came out positive. No, remember that they have already collected my sample before I began treatment.
Okay. That was the clarification I needed here.
Yes. They already collected my sample before I started medication in my house. It was when I realized that some members of my household were also exhibiting similar symptoms. That was when I got worried and wanted to know the actual outcome of my tests. So I escalated this.
Now, were you giving further medication after the one you did yourself before you tested negative?
I was, but when I got to the isolation center, I explained to the medical team what I have done. So what they did was they discontinued the antibiotics that they usually give to patients in the isolation center. And I just continued with other drugs, the supplements, the vitamins, and all of that. And I was there for 14 days. And in fairness, there is still much to be done, even in the isolation center. Sincerely speaking, we're not there yet. The
All right,
management in isolation center is not top notch. In the management of COVID-19, it is not. Thank God the director for public health, FCT,
Doctor
is
just finished. Can you respond? Can you respond to that and tell us more about what is being done to ensure that people get tested and get their results on time? You said we're getting more labs. So what stage are we in getting more labs for
actually,
testing?
we are decentralizing the testing sample collection center as I speak. We're expanding to about 20 sites for sample collection, including the response to alerts that we do in our public health department. So we are getting more sample collection sites across the whole 6 area councils. For his experience at the isolation center, we should know that there is no country that is perfect in management of COVID. There is no system that is perfect in the whole world in respect to COVID-19. That's the truth. Even the best of the countries still have challenges in managing their patients. For us in Nigeria, we have really done well. No matter how we look at it, we've done well. This thing came in as an emergency, pandemic for that matter. We didn't have a clear-cut system to manage this when it came into Nigeria. For us in FCT, we don't have any infectious disease hospital per se. So we ran around to create all these hospitals that patients are being managed now within the space of how many weeks? And that, if we have to talk about it, Edu Isolation Center is not really designated to be a hospital, so it was converted. Asokoro District Hospital is a hospital that has been there, but because of COVID-19, we have to convert it to COVID-19 center. Even the one in Teaching Hospital Gwagwalada, it's meant for accident and emergency, but it was converted to isolation center. We have really done well. We can't have a perfect system, no matter how you look at it. Exactly. That's the truth.
So is it right for people, who feel they have COVID to, use alternative medicine? Do you think it's right?
It's not right. This is an inbuilt or inherent behavior in us, Nigeria. Even as we are talking, there is so much sensitization, awareness. When I was listening to our friend over there taking all the herbs, 10 types of herbs, despite his level of education, awareness, he's part of the response team.
It's a psychological thing.
It's psychological. Then do the right thing. For us, do the right thing. That's why we're enlightening people. We have a lot of best spaces in the isolation center. Lagos have the same thing. We are opening up to respond positively to this COVID-19.
So what is the danger?
My honorable minister, immediately I told him, despite his level, immediately I told him, sir, I went to his house. I said, sir, the best option for you now is to go into isolation center. As long as we can manage you in your home, but it does not really go down. It will not go down well with you because, one, if you are managing somebody in his home, fully isolated, he does not really communicate with anybody. He doesn't see anybody. He's on his own. He brings in depression. We are battling with depression, a lot of depression now. From COVID-19. Many people are going mentally unstable because of that. So patients that you manage in open wards, they do better than the people that are strictly isolated from others. When we're talking about VIP, staying alone, for 14 days you're alone, locked up in a room, it will affect you psychologically. So I advise him, I say, sir, go to isolation center. You meet people there, you talk to people, all of you are infected. So you interact well, you recover better.
And he did
that?
He
did. And he was glad for that. So managing ourselves at home, self-medication is not acceptable and is not advisable in any way.
How dangerous is it?
It's very dangerous. Some people got complicated by doing that. Some cases that we were managing with those, they were doing self-medication with all these herbs, all sorts of local concoction. People mix ginger, garlic, they keep on drinking it every day. The organs are there, it can lead to organ failure. It's not taking care of the virus. We remember virus has its own problem. You must have to go through the normal medication. If you are taking all sorts that are not really affecting the virus, you are just wasting your time. And by day, minute by minute, right, you get complicated. The nasty thing about this coronavirus is that it depletes the oxygen level. The person might feel okay, and you see the person just getting tired. The only complaint is what? Tiredness. And it could be COVID, and they die. Some of them just die like that. They come in. We've lost 2 patients that were even in treatment center. Immediately, some of them have taken some herbs at home before coming in. They die like that. And these are people that are at the verge of recovering, full recovery. So anything can just go wrong. So taking decision of self-medication is not really acceptable.
Thank you. Before we go on break, let's hear from the minister. His experiences on daily basis. You were convinced to go to the isolation center and to, of course, be part of the patients who are being treated in that isolation center for 3 weeks. So let's share your experiences on daily basis.
Yeah, I must say I was very fortunate to be in an excellent isolation center. The management was very, very good. The protocol was excellent. And as I said, it was a place that one could actually go to spend a weekend, relaxing. It was very, very nice. And I really congratulate the staff there. You see, with me, I was virtually asymptomatic. So apart from in fact, when I checked in, the first thing they took was my oxygen level, 99%. So the doctor said to me at my age and this and that he was really surprised, and sometimes it went to 100%, sometimes 99%. So I had no problems with breathing. The only thing I had initially was the blood pressure was a bit high. They brought it down, but it came too low. And then I went back to, regular medication, and it stabilized. But other than that, everything else was working. In fact, the third day, I went jogging for 30 minutes.
Space for jogging in the isolation center?
Yeah, outside. You go. There's a place you meet, congregate outside with other patients who are there, and all that. To get some air, get some sunlight and everything for vitamin D and whatever. So it was a very agreeable environment. I went jogging for almost 3 or 4 kilometers, but I was told that it wasn't good because my immune system is already working addressing this issue. So if I put more stress on it by exercising too much, it wasn't going to be good for it. But the point I'm making is that I was physically that strong and that able. So I really didn't have, those kind of issues every day. It was, the same routine. They come in the morning, take your measurements and everything. I take various tests and then give you the medication. I was put on Zithromax, ivermectin, zinc, vitamin C, and later on vitamin D, and then just to clear my throat, some antibiotics later on down the road. But I must say, my only after 7 days, so it was just a normal routine every day. Go down to the garden area and meet other people, receive visitors actually, but self-distancing and social distancing. So I had no problems there. After 7 days, we took a test. I was still positive. And so where I started to get a bit little concerned, more than anything else. Not so much for myself, because I know that with viruses, they have a limited lifespan, and it'll work its way through. The important thing is to survive the 7 to 10 days where it could go in any direction. And I was told that once we got over 7 days, 10 days, that essentially it's not going to suddenly get worse. One just led to that. So after 7 days, we did a test, positive. Then after 12 days, did another one, still positive. Some people who met me there tested, were negative and left. So then I did another one, 19 days, still positive. So that's where I was getting a little frustrated,
So apart from the drugs you were given, what kind of diet were you advised to take, even when you go?
Yeah, nothing at all. My problem actually, sorry, I forgot to mention this. Yeah. Everybody is a COVID expert in the world now. Everybody, my wife, you name it, everybody, they're all COVID experts, telling you to take this, take that. So at one time I did the inhalation thing, and I said no more after a few times, and then all kinds of ginger and all these concoctions they were bringing every day. And after a while, I just said, enough was enough. So in the 19th day, the third time, still positive. And then on the 21st day, I took another one, and that came out negative. And a week later, took another one, and it was negative. So I had no problems. Of course, as I said, the only issue for me was just that there was a lot of attention on me, and a lot of people were calling, and I was truly touched.
So you were not really resting
by the numbers. I had about 300 messages on WhatsApp, 200 and something on SMSs. So that's what was taking up all my time, answering and thanking people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go on break, please, let's return to Ibadan, where we still have Dr. Wasiu Olatu Mbosu, the man that revealed to us that he started with local herbs. Wasiu, let us know what's happening in your isolation centers. As you told us earlier on, Oyo is also part of the southwest of Nigeria, where you have a good number of COVID-19 infections. So what is the situation in different isolation centers in Oyo State? And we recall also that your governor perhaps was the first case in Oyo State. And he also told Nigerians that he used some herbs. Maybe that was why you select your own with the herbs. That's just the essential of life. But the important thing now for us to know is whether your isolation centers are up to date with perhaps the facilities that are required to take care of patients in those places.
Okay, thank you very much. In Oyo State, we have many isolation centers that cut across all the geopolitical zones of the state. We have Olodo Isolation Center that can occupy about 120 people. We have one at Jericho, that's for Ibadan. We have one at Hawe to take care of for your zone. We have Lautech that takes care of Ubomazo zone. And we have Shaki that is meant to take care of Okegun area, and one at Ibarapa axis as well. So all these isolation centers, we have another one at UCH. So all these isolation centers, we put state-of-the-art equipment there, and they are giving best treatment that one can think of. So I think, let me quickly react to what my honorable minister, first of all, the madam there, the medical doctor there, I never expected her to say anything otherwise, but I strongly believe that it is high time we started looking inward and develop our herbs and package it so that we can also use it to do many things that they now classify as orthodox now. For instance, I stand to be corrected. We have many herbs and we have many things that you can do. That we have in Nigeria that boost immune system. So when I started using them, I know the result I got. I know from 35% how it got to the 40-45. Do you understand? So I still believe that it has not subjected to scientific proof or what have you, that is another thing entirely. But being Honorable Commissioner for Information, Culture and Tourism, I still believe that we have many things that you can use. We just want to implore the NAFDAC, the agency in charge of that, to work more on and see how we can get more some of our herbs and unorthodox, so-called unorthodox, so that they are very effective and we can still get them. And we can also send it to this Western world so that we can say that they are produced from Nigeria. So I don't buy their idea. So I combine both. I use this, the drugs that my friend listed the other time. I use them for almost 30 days.
I didn't see any result. I didn't see any result. So maybe because I was asymptomatic, so I didn't see anything. So and when they now say, okay, my immune system is very low, that we have to boost it. So they now say, okay, that I should drop certain things. But I realized that for another 2 tests after that I use all those zinc, vitamin C, and what have you, my immune system remained the same. Until when I now combine it with black seed oil, the atare, and orogo, and what have you. So, as far as I'm concerned, that is what worked for me. So, what worked for my honorable minister, because he's an Oyinbo man, is different from what worked for me as a son of Yalago, Omo Yalago Nimi. So, and I know what it means. So, I just want to implore our people that we need to work more. We should use this COVID-19 to see how we can improve on our unorthodox, the so-called unorthodox. But I believe that I would prefer, I'm more comfortable using it in
Dr. Olatubosu, we have to pause you there, really. You have indeed made your point.
So now,
we appreciate that. We appreciate your point, please. You have made a point. The most interesting aspect of that is the fact that we should look inwards. That is very important, right? Because we have herbs, and
on this program we've really talked about alternative medicine.
Exactly.
That,
if we can pay attention to that, it will be important. To help Nigeria as well. We have so many kind of herbs that could be, transformed into orthodox medication after some research work and what have you. That's what I think the point he's trying to make, and that is okay. But for you to now tell other Nigerians to go use those medications, please, we don't have to assist you in disseminating such information, because as you are speaking to us, now many Nigerians are noticing what you said you used, and before you know it, if they have any symptom of COVID-19, they will start going to look for those things to take. Thank you so much indeed. Now, this is Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the NTA. We are going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll go back to our conversation. Don't go away.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we've been discussing COVID-19 and sharing experiences. Well, Nigerians want to contribute to the conversation, and we have a number of tweets that came in. I will start with Mutana Farouk. He said, I commend the survivors of COVID-19 who willingly volunteered to share some of their experiences, although it would have been much better for the medical practitioners to come up to share their methods of treatment of COVID-19 patients in order to complete the circle of the story.
Festus Akimbo says, may God comfort the families of 985 people who've died from COVID-19. May God also grant the over 13,000 active COVID-19 patients a quick recovery. We must admire and appreciate our health workers for successfully treating and discharging over 37,000 COVID-19 patients in our country.
And still from Festus, as we are reminded every day of the number of people who caught the virus, we must not forget the many stories of hope as many people recover from the disease every day.
Nandom G, with so much information available about the severity of the virus and the need to always follow guidelines, some people still refuse to accept the reality. This denial manifests itself in many ways, like refusing to wear a mask, attending large gatherings, keeping a distance, and so on.
Mike Anyako tweets, the testimonies of COVID-19 survivors will go a long way in helping us to annihilate this unseen enemy by observing in all its entirety the protocols are demanded by regulatory agencies.
Delegate Solomon, women all over the world are at the forefront of the battle against and in the creation of awareness of the pandemic, as they make up almost 17% of the healthcare workforce, exposing them to greater risk of infection, while they are underrepresented in leadership and decision-making process in the healthcare sector. They haven't relented in this noble cause of service to humanity. Delegate Solomon, this part of the information should go to not to us, should go to the right place. If you're talking about the representation of the leadership of women in the health sector, I mean, they are sounding political. I thought you were discussing COVID-19.
Well, Mike Hayako tweets, from testimonies of COVID-19 survivors, the disease is real, and so all protocols against it must be respected to the latter. The experiences are horrible: lack of taste, constant coughing, feverish, etc. The medications they use, interesting. Some of them use Trado, some on self-medication. Well?
Okay, from Chris Simeon, as we carry out an awareness campaign on how people should take safety measures, we should also sensitize people on how to shun stigmatization. COVID-19 is not a death sentence.
Kofa Warola tweets, talking about NCDC response to COVID-19 disaster in Nigeria. It is poor. And Amin GBS tweets, I thank God and happy for the life of the minister who lives to tell the story, but so many were not lucky to survive the delayed status communication. I hope health authorities will take note and guard against such. Dr. Josephine, while the commissioner from Oyo was speaking, you were itching to respond to him. What were you trying to say?
It's good that this kind of program is coming up. We, in all forms, do not really encourage self-medication, just like I said. More so, this traditional medicine that they are taking is not really encouraging, because you don't know the components, the composition, and the quantity, and we're talking about viral attack in the system. When you look at the lifespan of the virus, it's short-lived. So when it attacks, it wants to finish its work, the horrible work, within a short period. So if it's not properly managed, things could go wrong. So a lot of mortality can come down with it. So all those drugs that we are taking, even as it is now, there is no known drug that is okay, this is the cure for COVID-19, right? But a lot of research is ongoing. We should adhere, just like many tweets have said, to the guidelines. The drugs are there. The medical personnel have been trained on the drugs combination that could abate this virus and the person stay alive. So doing anything extraordinarily from the normal could create problem. So we are not encouraging people out there to keep on taking all these herbs. A lot of research is ongoing. We are collaborating with the traditional medicine practitioners in doing a lot of research in looking for the drugs that, in terms of herbs, that could manage this COVID-19. In as much as we are doing that, we are looking at the orthodox side too. A lot of research is ongoing within the country and outside the country. So for now, I'm just talking, begging the Nigerian populace. We all have our traditional way of managing ailments, but for COVID-19, it is quite a serious problem, so that people should not just take it for granted, because that's why it kills.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Josephine, okay.
Honorable Minister, I actually wanted to speak to this. We've heard about vaccines around the globe, and the number of, in fact, over 100 pharmaceutical companies across the globe are embarking on research towards getting a vaccine for COVID-19. Just 2 weeks ago, Russia came up to say, look, that the country has come up with vaccine. And it is a matter of policy, as it were, because COVID-19 as a virus that has ravaged the entire globe, nations will have to be careful about it and take necessary steps, especially when it comes to policies that will determine the direction any nation is going to take. In this connection, Where is Nigeria tilting to? You know, are we really expecting to have to key ourselves in with any part of the world with respect to the issue of having a vaccine?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. And to see how we can cooperate with that, and all the other countries that are researching in this area. So it's absolutely important. In fact, Africa, as a group, the African Union has a policy position on that. ECOWAS, as you know, our president is actually the chairman for the COVID response of the ECOWAS, and is also addressing that. And the most important aspect is for Africa to key in to these developments of vaccines so that we will have access to any successful vaccine.
Okay, as the world is opening up slowly, you've been there, you've seen it, you've